and they know nothing else after that. There's no street cameras, like this is 1997. There's no like cell phones that people are taking videos like, and he had, $17.3 million in cash.
Right.
Um, so out of initial leads, the FBI turned to David's wife and sister to get a better understanding of who David is and where he might be. Tammy said that money was tight and that David was working long shifts to pay off credit card debt. She did not think he could do something like this. Somebody must have forced him. Um, yeah, I think he was doing the math like a day or two before he did the heist, and if they made the minimum payments on their credit card debt, he'd be paying it. And this was in 97. They'd be paying it off till 2042. And he was like, I can't. Like, and again, he's making 8.15 an hour and he's like transporting hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Um, so
Good
after
tips.
leaving the warehouse, back to the crime here for a second. After leaving the warehouse, Gant drove to the Reynolds and Reynolds parking lot where he was to meet up with Eric Payne and Scott Grant to transfer the money to the rental van. Once David arrived, he gave the men the keys, the Scott or Eric Payne and Scott Grant. He gave them the keys, and then Kelly took him to the airport. And as I mentioned earlier, had to do the whole bus thing to Atlanta. Um, After they left, they didn't realize that David handed them like a ring of like 200 keys and did not tell them which one it was. So they then spent the next like hour trying like all the different keys. They tried to break the bulletproof glass
Oh
on,
my God.
on the van. And they finally got like the right key after like an hour. Um, so they moved the money into a moving van and then they went to Chambers' like mobile home again. And apparently when they got there, Steve Chambers' wife, Michelle Chambers, kept saying, quote, look at all this money and I love money and I'm rich. She couldn't stop saying that. Um, so then on the following day, Kelly Campbell went on the 5th. Kelly Campbell went to the Chambers trailer to watch the news. The words "the heist" pop up on the screen as the reporters go into what they know about the case. Unsurprisingly, they don't know who the suspects were or even how much was taken. But Chambers knew since he had 14 million of it hidden under dog food in his shed. Um, Gant and Chambers believed the FBI would give up if they just kept quiet for a year. But the FBI did not treat this like a regular case. Quote, that week, the FBI designated the theft the 142nd major case, putting it on a list begun in the 1970s that includes all of the FBI or such other infamous crimes, such as the World Trade Center bombing, end quote. With this special designation, all of the FBI's focus was finding on the stolen money and the culprits behind the heist. They knew that Gant.
Wait, how did this crime get compared to 9/11 again? I missed that.
It was the. I don't know if they're referring to 9/11 when they say the World Trade Center bombing. I think they're.
That has to be.
No, I don't think so. I don't
Oh
think that's.
wait, yeah, no, World Trade Center bombing.
Yeah, no, I think there was. Yeah, no, that's not referring to it. It was just put in the same file of what's designated as a major case. It was only 142nd major case the FBI had designated. Um, so that's how
Okay, okay,
yeah, not very much of like a relation, but just kind of like a similarity.
sure.
Um, so they knew that Gant was behind the heist due to the security tapes, but they also knew that he had help after discovering the Loomis van with $3.3 million still inside of it. They also had a record of David's pager notifications and noticed that he received a page saying 143 during the time of the heist. Quote, we kept going 143, 143, recalled Vic O'Corn, assistant special agent in charge of Charlotte's FBI office. He recalled that another agent, Phil King, said, hey there, there's an article in the Charlotte Observer about beeper codes. 143 is I love you. This message was sent by none other than Kelly Campbell, who again had no interest in Gant.
Oh
I know.
God,
I know.
this poor guy.
I know. So no, it gets worse. So during the immediate aftermath of the robbery, the FBI was poring over every possible lead, from strangers to David's wife. While the FBI was hard at work, the Chambers were having a difficult time adjusting to their new wealth. This part is hilarious. They are maybe the most like this is maybe the strongest definition of new rich you've ever seen in your entire life. Um, So they've had a hard time adjusting to their level of income, according to Jeff Diamont, the Washington Post. The first weekday after the heist, Michelle Chambers, co-conspirator Steve's wife, walked into a Nations Bank branch with the briefcase containing $5,000. She asked about the limit for a cash deposit before paperwork was required. She also assured the teller her cash wasn't drug money. The teller, who hadn't asked, filed a suspicious activity report. Agents noticed it 2 months later when it flowed
Oh,
through official channels along with hundreds of similar reports involving other people. Yeah, that one's pretty good. Um, that October, the Chambers bank account exploded with consistent 5,000 deposits almost every other day. 3 weeks after the heist, Steve Chambers and his wife purchased a $635,000 house in the gated community of Cramerton, North Carolina. Believe it or not, if you spend a majority of your life in a double wide trailer, decorating a 6,000 square foot house can be quite the challenge. Naturally, they began to fill their new mansion with antiques, paintings, and statues. They also purchased a velvet portrait of Elvis, a 6 foot wooden Indian chief, and a BMW convertible.
sick. These
I
guys
know.
are nailing it.
They kind of are.
They're-
Obviously, this type of consumption is not going to go unnoticed by officials, let alone the in-laws. They told Michelle's mom that Steve had been saving his gambling money for a down payment, to which she responded, "We're not that. Oh, we're not the type that questions everything people tell us." Great response.
Good response.
So while the Chambers are going on a spending spree for the ages, Gant was staying in a small apartment in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, living off of the 25,000 he originally brought with him. He began his time in Mexico living like a king, staying at luxury resorts, buying 4 pairs of the same boots, treating himself to a fancy dinner every night. He began to run out of cash around the end of October, and he started harping on Steve for more of his money. He kept saying it was his money, which I mean, it is. This annoyed Chambers to the point where he believed his only solution was to hire a hitman to take out Gant. So Kelly, who didn't have romantic feelings for Gant but still felt he should not be killed, said no to the idea multiple times, but was finally convinced at a Halloween party that it was the only way to get away from it cleanly. She states, quote, "Every time my conscience would start bothering me, I'd smoke another joint and forget about it."
Oh my God. How long has it been since the robbery at this point?
Like 27 days.
Oh my God. Only 27 days and she's already ready to kill the guy.
I know. So, Chambers got in contact with an old friend named Mike McKinney, which is actually funny because the fake ID that David Gant was using to like get to Mexico and everything was Mike McKinney's ID. So, little connection there. And he said Chambers said that he would pay McKinney $2,500,000 or $250,000, 250 yeah, $1,000. Why am I okay? To go down to Mexico and kill Gant. The plan was for McKinney to give Gant some of the money until they could figure out a proper way to kill him. However, things did not go as planned. Quote, McKinney carried $10,000 to Cancun, but wound up spending most of it on himself. He partied, met women, drank, skied, and hung out at the beach. He told Steve he hadn't been able to find David. By this time, David is living on pasta and grilled cheese sandwiches just 3 weeks after committing the second largest cash heist on U.S. soil. To not give up his position, David was only able to talk to Kelly once a week, where he would repeatedly ask when she was going to come down and when he was going to get more of his money. On McKinney's second trip to Mexico, he gave Gant $8,500, to which Gant replied wasn't enough. And this was the moment that David realized he would most likely not be seeing any more of the money he stole. On the third final trip McKinney made to Mexico, David finally told him that they stole the $17 million in cash, to which McKinney recalled thinking, quote, "They aren't paying me enough." Jeff Diamont states, though he never found the right moment to carry out the hit, McKinney did find time to make a friend, a shady character named Robert, to whom he revealed more than what was prudent. For reasons that remain obscure, Robert spilled the beans to David. He told him McKinney was in Mexico to kill somebody. David quickly realized he was the intended victim and rewarded Robert with $3,000 and vowed to never meet McKinney alone. Now worried about both the FBI and McKinney, he spent even more time alone. Thanksgiving and Christmas were difficult. Quote, I missed my family. I missed my wife. There were times when I drank really heavily. At this point, the FBI was able to connect Campbell to Gant. They knew that they worked together and everything. They knew that they were friends somewhat. Campbell actually got interviewed by the FBI, and she told the FBI that they used to date. So they were able to connect those two. I know. So then they also knew that the Chambers had possession of the Loomis Fargo cash because when they would deposit, an FBI agent watched Michelle Chambers deposit $8,000 that had like the Loomis Fargo wrap around it. Like it still had the initial money wrap on it. They couldn't connect the two though until Kelly Campbell purchased a new car and registered it under one of Steve Chambers' aliases. Um, this allowed the FBI to place a wiretap on the Chambers phone where they heard Steve discussing depositing 2.5 million in the Caymans, Michelle bragging about her $43,000 ring, and the plan for McKinney to go to Mexico to kill David. On February 27th, this wiretap gave them the one thing they had been looking for, the location of David Gant. March 1st, 1998. So honestly, kind of like manhunt 5 months, 6 months. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty good.
David left his room to do some laundry and was immediately arrested by Interpol and Mexican police, and they put him on the next flight back to Charlotte. Back at home, FBI supervisor Rick Schaefer led 12 agents to the Chambers mansion, where they arrested Steve and Michelle, followed by Kelly Campbell later that day, and they also arrested 21 people. They arrested 21 people total, so we're looking at 17 family members that were mostly, and Scott Grant and Eric Payne, the guys that helped load the money into the van. Eric Payne spent his share of the money on a motorcycle and breast implants for his wife and two sisters. Just thought that was a fun little anecdote. Uh,
That's unbelievable.
I know.
How
Again,
much? Wait. So
he
there
was
were
cut with
two.
$100,000. He helped move the money from the Loomis Fargo van into the moving van in the Reynolds and Reynolds parking lot, and his cut was $100,000.
Really?
Um,
Work.
so in the 2 days following the arrests, all but 2 million of the stolen cash was accounted for. When asked about the missing 2 million, Chambers said that his shed was broken into and he has no idea where the money is. Money was never found. They still don't know. 21 defendants were charged in total. The main four being Stephen, Michelle Chambers, Kelly Campbell, and David Gant, received grand larceny charges and money laundering charges, while the others just received money laundering charges. Chambers served 11 years before being released, while Campbell got 8 years. Gant got 7, but only served 5. And when asked if he felt bad just a few years after the heist, Gant replied, it probably should bother me, but I hate to admit it, it doesn't faze me one bit. It's just,
Sweet, simple man.
yeah. And I'm sure he made some money off the movie that was made, maybe a little.
Yeah, wait, so what was everyone's final punishments?
Chambers got 11 years. Campbell got 8 years. Gant got 7, and I want to say Michelle got 8. So those were the main four, and then everybody else mostly just got like fines or like under a year.
Bro, Gant should be pissed.
Oh, I'm sure he is. And now he lives in Jacksonville, and he says that his wife is 15 going on 20, which is a weird, that's not the saying. I don't know what that means.
And disgusting.
I
Like
know.
what?
I
Is
think
that
it,
a brag?
no, I think it means like she's like young at heart, but I think the saying is like 15 going on 30. Um, But when we look at how this impacted modern day, the most important factor here is technology. If this heist were to occur today, there would be no tapes, or there would be no tapes to take from the cameras. They'd all be digitally backed up. The amount of cameras in public places has skyrocketed in the 21st century. They would have known exactly where David went. There would be footage of that parking lot, like there are cameras literally everywhere. Um, and then also Loomis has changed their hiring process to make sure that they uh, don't have this happen again because they had this that happened twice within a 6-month span. Um, So they now have one of the strictest background checks in the public job sphere. I don't know, that's not the right word.